everybody. Thanks for joining me. We are picking up with Pinocchio. We are going to be starting on chapter 22. I hope everybody's comfortable. I hope everybody has their beverage. And let's get started. Chapter 22. Pinocchio discovers the thieves, and as a reward for his faithfulness, is set free. He had been sleeping soundly for over 2 hours, when about midnight he was wakened by the sound of strange voices that seemed to come from the yard. He stuck the point of his nose out of his kennel and saw 4 animals with dark fur that looked like cats. They were polecats, meat-eating animals, that are especially fond of eggs and young chickens. One of them, leaving his companions, came to the door of the kennel, and in a low tone said, "Good morning, Melampo." "My name is not Melampo," said the puppet. "Who are you, then?" "I am Pinocchio." "And what are you doing there?" "I am a watchdog." "But where is Melampo? Where is the old dog that lived in this kennel?" "He died this morning." "Did he? Poor beast, he was so kind. However, judging by your looks, you seem to be a good-natured dog, too." "Excuse me, I am not a dog." "Ah, what are you, then?" "I am a puppet." "And you act as a watchdog?" "Alas, I have to do it as a punishment." "Well, we might make the same bargain with you that we made with old Melampo. I'm sure our conditions will satisfy you." "And what might they be?" "We shall come to the poultry yard 1 night a week, as in the past, and carry off 8 chickens. We shall eat 7 and give you 1, on condition, you must understand, that you pretend to be asleep when we are here, and never bark or wake up the farmer." "Is that what old Melampo did?" "Yes, indeed, and we always got on splendidly together. Now sleep quietly, and you can be sure we shall bring you a chicken for your breakfast, ready plucked. Do we understand each other?" "I understand only too clearly," answered Pinocchio, shaking his head menacingly, as if saying, "We'll soon see about that." When the 4 polecats thought they were safe, they went to the poultry yard, which was near the kennel. They opened the wooden door with their teeth and claws, and slipped inside, one after the other. But scarcely were they all inside, when the door was shut with a loud bang. It was Pinocchio who had shut it, and to make sure, he put a big stone against it. Then he started to bark, and he barked just like a watchdog. "Bow wow 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 wow!" When the peasant heard him barking, he jumped out of bed, and taking his gun, he came to the window and called out, "What's the matter?" "The thieves are here," cried Pinocchio. "Where are they?" "In the poultry yard." "I'm coming right away." Quicker than you can say amen, the peasant had come. He went to the poultry yard, caught the 4 polecats, and put them into a sack. He said with a pleased voice, "At last you've fallen into my hands. I could punish you, but I am not so cruel. It is enough for me if I take you to the innkeeper in the village, who will skin you and cook you into a sweet savory sauce, and serve you for hares. It is an honor you do not deserve, but generous people like me are ready to do a good service." Then he went to Pinocchio, caressed him, and, among other questions, he asked him, "How did you discover these thieves? To think that Melampo, my faithful Melampo, never could find anything." The puppet could have told the truth. That is, he could have told the peasant of the shameful agreement between the dog and the polecats. But he remembered that the dog was dead, and he said to himself, "What good will it do if I accuse the dead? A dead person is dead and gone. The best thing to do is to leave him in peace." "Were you awake or asleep when these rascals arrived?" said the peasant. "I was asleep," answered Pinocchio, "but they woke me by talking loudly, and one of them came to my kennel and said, 'If you promise not to bark or wake up the peasant, we shall give you a nicely plucked chicken.' Imagine the impudence, offering such a proposition. I may be a puppet, and I may be full of faults, but I would never go with thieves, nor take a share in stolen goods." "Good for you, my boy," said the peasant, patting him on the shoulder. "Such sentiments do credit to you, and to show how grateful I am, I give you back your freedom, that you may go home." And he took off the dog's collar. Chapter 23. Pinocchio weeps for the death of the beautiful blue-haired child. Then he meets a pigeon who carries him to the seashore, where he dives into the water to save his father. When Pinocchio was freed from that heavy, humiliating collar on his neck, he started out across the fields, never stopping for 1 second, until he reached the road which led to the fairy's house. When he reached it, he stopped to look down on the countryside. He could see plainly with his naked eye the site where he unluckily met the fox and the cat. He could see the wood with the big oak on which he had been hanged. But although he looked everywhere, he could not see the little house where the lovely blue-haired child had lived. Driven by a sad foreboding, he ran with all his might, and in a few minutes he reached the field where the little white house had once stood. But the little white house was no longer there. Instead, there was a little piece of white marble on which these sad words were engraved: "Here lies the blue-haired child, who died of sorrow on being deserted by her little brother, Pinocchio." I leave you to imagine the puppet's feelings when he spelt out this inscription. He fell to the ground, and kissing the cold stone 1,000 times, burst into a flood of tears. He cried all night, and at dawn he was still crying, although he had no more tears. His wailing and moaning were so loud and penetrating that it was echoed from all the neighboring hills. As he wept, he said, "Oh, dear fairy, why are you dead? Why didn't I die? I who am so wicked, instead of you, who were so good. And my father, where is he? Oh, dear little fairy, tell me where I can find him, for I want to stay with him forever and never, never leave him. Dear fairy, tell me it is not true that you are dead. If you love me, if you love your little brother, come to life just once more. Come back as you were before. Are you not sorry to see me here alone, abandoned by everybody? Should the assassins come again, they will hang me, and then I shall be dead forever. What can I do alone in the world? Now that I have lost you and my father, who will look after me? Where shall I sleep? Who will make me a new jacket? Oh, it will be better, 100 times better, if I die too. Yes, I want to die. Boo-hoo-hoo." In this desperate state, he tried to tear his hair, but as it was made of wood, he could not even stick his fingers through it. At this moment, a large pigeon, flying high above him, stopped with outstretched wings and called to him, "Tell me, child, what are you doing down there?" "Don't you see I'm crying?" said Pinocchio, looking toward the voice and rubbing his eyes with his jacket. "Tell me," continued the pigeon, "do you know among your friends a puppet called Pinocchio?" "Pinocchio? Did you say Pinocchio?" shouted the puppet, jumping to his feet. "I'm Pinocchio." At this answer, the pigeon quickly alighted to the ground. He was larger than a turkey. "Do you know Geppetto, too?" he asked. "Do I know him? He is my poor father. Has he spoken to you of me? Will you take me to him? Is he still alive? Tell me quickly, for heaven's sakes, is he still alive?" "I left him 3 days ago on the sea-coast." "What was he doing?" "He was making a little boat to cross the ocean in. The poor man has been wandering around the world more than 3 months and looking for you. As he couldn't find you, he decided to search for you in distant countries." "How far is it from here to the sea-coast?" Pinocchio asked anxiously. "Nearly 600 miles." "Nearly 600 miles? Oh, dear pigeon, what a fine thing it would be if I had wings like you." "If you want to go, I shall carry you." "How? Astride my back, Are you very heavy? Heavy? No, indeed, I am light as a feather. Without wasting another word, Pinocchio jumped on the pigeon's back, with a leg on each side of him like a rider of a horse, and shouted gaily, "Gallop, gallop, little horse, for I am terribly hungry." The pigeon took flight, and in a few minutes he was so high that they almost touched the clouds. Once, at that great height, the puppet grew very curious and looked down, but he got so frightened, and the sight made him so dizzy, that he put his arms tight around the neck of his feathered steed to save him from falling off. They flew all day. Towards the evening, the pigeon said, "I am so thirsty." "And I am so hungry," added Pinocchio. "Let us stop a few minutes at this dovecote, and then we shall continue our flight, and by dawn we shall be at the sea-coast." They entered a deserted dovecote, where there was nothing but a basin of water and a basket full of green seed. The puppet had never in his life been able to eat green seed, for, as he said, it turned his stomach. But that evening he could not eat enough of it, and when the basket was empty, he said to the pigeon, "I couldn't have believed green seed could taste so good." "You will learn, my lad," replied the pigeon, "that when you are really hungry and there is nothing else to eat, even green seed becomes delicious." Hunger is the best cook. After having finished this little meal, they did not rest, but continued their journey. The next morning they arrived at the seashore. The pigeon stopped to let Pinocchio dismount, and then quickly flew away. He did not want to be thanked for having done a good deed. The beach was full of people who were shouting and gesticulating as they looked out to sea. "What's happened?" Pinocchio asked of an old woman. "A poor father has lost his son, and he intends crossing the sea in a small boat to search for him, but the waves are so high, the boat will capsize." "Where is the boat?" "Right there, where my finger points," said the old woman, pointing to a little boat which at that distance looked like a nutshell in a very small man, with a very small man in it. Pinocchio looked closely and uttered a piercing cry. "It's my father! It's my father!" Meanwhile, the little boat, thrown by the angry waves, once disappeared completely, then reappeared on the top of a wave. Pinocchio, standing on a high rock, called his father by name again and again, signaling with his hands, with his cap, and with his handkerchief. Although Geppetto was very far away, he seemed to recognize his son, for he waved with his cap, and he also made signals as if he would like to return to land, but the sea was so furious that he could not use his oars. Suddenly there came a huge wave, and the little boat disappeared. They waited to see it again. "Poor man," said the fishermen, who were standing together on the beach, and murmuring a prayer, they turned to go home. Suddenly they heard a desperate shout, and looking back, they saw a boy jumping into the sea from a rock, crying, "I will save my father!" Pinocchio, being made of wood, floated easily and swam like a fish. They saw him disappear under the water, beaten about by the waves, and then he reappeared. In the distance now a leg appeared, now an arm, and then at last they lost sight of him altogether. "Poor boy," said the fishermen on the beach, and murmuring a prayer, they went home. That's the end of chapter 23. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you join me here tomorrow for more reading. Have a great day, everybody.